The year was 2347, and humanity had been traveling among the stars for nearly 200 years. They had built homes on 12 different worlds. They had created trade routes that stretched across 3 star systems, and they had earned a reputation as a quiet and hard-working species that always chose talking over fighting. Admiral Linda Monroe stood on the bridge of her starship, the Endurance. She was a woman of 62 years, with gray hair pulled back tight and eyes that had seen too many battles and too many funerals. The holographic display in front of her showed a message that had just arrived from the Galactic Council, and reading it made her stomach turn. The Velthary Dominion wanted human space. They had sent what they called a request, but everyone knew it was really a threat. The Velthary were a reptilian species that had conquered over 40 other races in their long history. They had millions of soldiers, thousands of warships, and a hunger for power that never seemed to stop. Commander Henry Cole walked up beside her. He was her second in command, a man with broad shoulders and a face full of worry lines. He had served with Linda for 15 years, and he knew her well enough to see that she was struggling to keep calm. "They are giving us 90 days, Henry said, his voice low. 90 days to hand over all our colonies, all our ships, and all our people. The Council says they will not help us." Linda did not answer right away. She thought about all the times humanity had tried to make friends with the other species in the galaxy. They had accepted bad trade deals. They had stayed quiet when other species insulted them. They had followed every rule the Council made, even when those rules were unfair. And what had they gotten in return? Nothing. The Council saw humans as a minor species, barely worth noticing. Their representatives were ignored in meetings. Their complaints were dismissed without consideration. "Send a message to Earth Command," Linda said at last. "Tell them what has happened. Tell them the Council has abandoned us." She turned away from the display and looked out at the stars through the viewport. Somewhere out there, the Velthary were preparing their invasion fleet. Somewhere out there, millions of humans on colony worlds were living their lives without knowing what was coming. "What do you think Earth will do?" Henry asked. Linda's jaw tightened. "I think Earth will do what it should have done a long time ago." On Earth, in the city of Washington, President Daniel Hayes sat in his office reading the same message. He was a tall man with kind eyes, but those eyes had grown harder over the past year. He had sent diplomat after diplomat to try to make peace with the Velthary. Every single one had failed. His Secretary of Defense, Maria Santos, stood across from him with a tablet in her hands. She was a small woman with sharp features and a mind like a computer. "The Velthary have approximately 12,000 warships," she said. "Our visible fleet numbers just over 2,000. They outnumber us 6 to 1. Daniel nodded slowly. He had known this day might come. Deep in his heart, he had hoped it never would. Humanity had worked so hard to be peaceful. They had bent over backwards to avoid conflict. They had hidden their true strength because they believed that showing it would make them targets. But now they were targets anyway. Now, the Velthary were coming, and the galaxy expected humanity to roll over and die. "Call a meeting of the Security Council," Daniel said. "The real one." Maria's eyes widened slightly. "Sir, are you certain?" "I am certain. It is time to activate Protocol Prometheus." 3 hours later, Daniel stood before a group of 12 people in a room that did not officially exist. These were the keepers of humanity's greatest secret. They were generals and scientists, politicians and engineers. They knew things that the rest of the galaxy could not even imagine. 250 years ago, Daniel began, our ancestors found something buried beneath the ice of Antarctica. It was a ship, not a human ship. Something far older and far more advanced than anything we had ever seen. He pressed a button, and a holographic image appeared in the center of the room. It showed a vessel unlike any human design, smooth and elegant, built with technology that even now seemed like magic. We spent decades studying it. We learned how it worked. We improved on its designs. And then we made a choice. Daniel looked around the room at the faces watching him. Our ancestors chose to hide what we had learned. They feared that if the galaxy knew our true capabilities, they would see us as a threat. They worried that powerful species would attack us before we could defend ourselves. So they built 2 fleets. One fleet to show the galaxy primitive and weak, and another fleet to keep hidden, waiting for the day when we would have no other choice. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the room. That day has come. The Velthri are coming for our people. The Council has abandoned us. We have 90 days to either surrender everything we have built or show the galaxy who we really are. General Patricia Wells, the oldest person in the room, spoke up. Her voice was rough from decades of giving orders. What about diplomacy? One more try? We will try, Daniel said. We will send Ambassador Peter Grant to deliver our terms in person. We will give the Velthri every chance to back down peacefully. And if they refuse, Daniel's expression hardened. Then we remind the galaxy that human patience was never weakness. It was mercy. And mercy has limits. Far from Earth, on the colony world of New Providence, a young girl named Sophie was playing in a field of purple flowers that only grew on that planet. She was 7 years old, with curly brown hair and a laugh that made everyone around her smile. She did not know that 90 days from now, 3,000 warships would fill the sky above her home. She did not know that her peaceful world would become the site of the most one-sided battle in galactic history. She did not know that the adults around her were already receiving quiet messages, telling them to prepare for something terrible. All she knew was that the flowers were beautiful, the sun was warm, and her parents had promised to take her to see the ocean next week in the capital city of New Providence. Governor Samuel Blake stood at his window, watching the sun set over the mountains. He had just finished reading the classified briefing from Earth. His hands were shaking. They want us to prepare evacuation plans, he said to his assistant. But they also say we should not panic the population. His assistant, a young man named Derek, nodded nervously. What should we do? Samuel took a deep breath. For years he had governed this colony with kindness and patience. He had built schools and hospitals. He had helped farmers and businesses grow. He had believed that peace was always possible if people just tried hard enough. Now he was being told that peace might not be an option anymore. We do what Earth says, he answered finally. We prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. And we pray that the Velthri are smarter than they seem. But deep down, Samuel knew that hope was not a strategy. The Velthri had conquered 40 species. They had never backed down from a fight. They had never shown mercy to those who resisted. What the Velthri did not know, what no one in the galaxy knew except for a handful of humans, was that this time would be different. This time, they'd picked a fight with a species that had been hiding its true strength for over 2 centuries. The clock was ticking. 90 days remained, and somewhere beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility buried deep underground, lights that had been dark for decades began to flicker on. The Rocky Mountains had stood for millions of years, silent witnesses to everything that had happened on Earth. Native peoples had hunted in their shadows. Settlers had crossed their peaks. Wars had been fought and forgotten while the mountains remained unchanged. But deep beneath those ancient stones, something extraordinary was waking up. Dr. Grace Miller had worked in the underground facility for 23 years. She was a physicist with wild gray hair and glasses that were always slightly crooked. She had spent her entire career studying technology that most people on Earth did not even know existed. Today, for the first time in her life, she was watching the main vault doors open. The doors were made of metal that was 3 feet thick. They had not moved since the facility was first completed over a century ago. The sound they made as they slid apart was like thunder rolling through the underground halls. I never thought I would see this day, Grace whispered to herself. Her assistant, Kevin Brooks, stood beside her with his mouth hanging open. He was 28 years old, fresh out of the most advanced physics program on Earth, and he had thought he understood technology. He had been wrong. Behind those massive doors was a cavern the size of a small city. Row after row of machines stretched into the darkness, each one more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Weapons that could shatter planets. Engines that could cross the universe in hours. shields that could stop any attack. The Council thinks we discovered faster-than-light travel 200 years ago, Gray said, her voice echoing in the vast space. They think our technology is primitive. They have no idea what we found. Kevin walked forward slowly, like a man in a dream. He reached out and touched one of the machines, half expecting it to disappear. When did we find it? He asked. The original ship, I mean. Grace smiled sadly. 1952, almost 400 years ago. A research team was drilling in Antarctica when they discovered something buried deep beneath the ice. It was a ship, Kevin, not human. Something much older than humanity itself. She led him deeper into the cavern, past weapons platforms and engine cores, past computer systems and medical devices. Nobody knows who built it or where they came from. The ship was damaged, probably crashed there millions of years before humans even existed. But most of its technology still worked. Kevin tried to imagine what those first scientists must have felt. Finding proof of alien life, finding technology that was centuries beyond anything on Earth, finding answers and questions all at once. Why did we hide it? He asked. With technology like this, we could have been the most powerful species in the galaxy from the beginning. Grace stopped walking and turned to face him. Her eyes were serious. Because our ancestors were afraid, Kevin, and they were wise to be afraid.
We're wise.
She gestured around at the weapons surrounding them. And think about what this technology means. With these weapons, we could conquer anyone. We could rule the galaxy if we wanted to. And our ancestors knew that other species would see that. They would see humanity as a threat. They would attack us before we could build up our defenses, before we could train enough crews, before we were ready. Kevin nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand. So, they hid everything, he said. They pretended to be weak. More than that, Grace continued. They hoped we would never need to use it at all. They dreamed of a galaxy where humanity could succeed through peace and cooperation. They wanted to prove that we were worthy of our place among the stars because of who we were, not because of what we could do. Her voice grew soft with emotion. For 200 years, we have tried to live that dream. We have accepted insults. We have tolerated unfair treatment. We have watched species like the Velthari bully and threaten us, and we have responded with patience. Always patience. She turned and looked at the weapons again. But patience is not unlimited. And now the Velthari have pushed us too far. On the other side of the facility, Admiral Linda Monroe was receiving her briefing. From General Patricia Wells, the two women sat in a conference room surrounded by holographic displays showing technical specifications that Linda was still struggling to understand. Weapons are based on something called 0 point energy, Patricia explained. She was 80 years old, but still sharp as a razor. The original ship used it for propulsion, but our scientists found ways to weaponize it. One of our new frigates can output more firepower than the entire Velthari fleet combined.
Oh.
Linda stared at the numbers on the display. They seemed impossible. And our shields? She asked. Based on dimensional folding technology, incoming weapons fire is redirected into a parallel dimension before it can reach our hulls. For all practical purposes, our ships cannot be damaged by any weapon currently known to exist in the galaxy. Linda leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. For 30 years, she had commanded human warships that were barely more advanced than the vessels of other species. She had fought battles where survival depended on clever tactics and desperate courage. She had lost friends and colleagues because their ships were simply not good enough. And all that time, this technology had been sitting here waiting. Why was I never told? She asked quietly. I have the highest security clearance in the Navy. Patricia's expression softened, because knowing would have been a burden. Linda, every time you sent a crew into danger, every time you watched a ship explode, you would have known that it did not have to happen. The fewer people who carried that weight, the better. Linda closed her eyes. She thought about all the memorial services she had attended. All the letters she had written to grieving families. All the names carved into the Navy's walls of honor. How long until the ships are ready? She asked, opening her eyes again. The first wave of 30 vessels will be combat ready within 2 weeks. Another 600 will follow over the next 60 days. The cruise. Patricia smiled grimly. Already in training, the technology is more advanced, but the principles are the same. Point the ship at the enemy and fire. Our people will adapt quickly. Linda stood up and walked to the window that looked out over the main cavern. She could see teams of engineers working on the vessels, preparing them for the battles to come. The president is sending a diplomatic mission first, she said. One more chance for peace. Yes. Ambassador Peter Grant. He leaves tomorrow. What? Linda nodded slowly. She had met Peter Grant once, years ago. He was a good man, dedicated to peace, willing to take risks for the chance to avoid bloodshed. I hope he succeeds, she said. I hope the Velthari are smart enough to listen. Patricia came to stand beside her. And if they are not? Linda's jaw tightened. She thought about Sophie, the little girl playing in the purple flowers on New Providence. She thought about all the children on all the colony worlds who would die if humanity failed to protect them. They are not, Linda said, her voice hard. Then we show them what human patience was really protecting them from. While the facility hummed with activity below, Kevin Brooks sat alone in his quarters reading the history files. He learned about the scientist who had first discovered the Antarctic ship. He read about the decades of secret research, the arguments about what to do with the technology, the final decision to hide it away. One passage caught his attention. It was from a speech given by President Catherine Moore in 2145. 200 years ago, when the decision was first made. We are not hiding our strength because we are afraid, she had said. We are hiding it because we have hope. Hope that the galaxy can be better than it is. Hope that peace is possible. Hope that one day, we will never need these weapons at all. Kevin closed the file and stared at the ceiling. Hope had carried humanity for 2 centuries. But hope alone could not stop the Velthari fleet. Hope alone could not protect the colonies. Hope alone was not enough anymore. Tomorrow, Ambassador Peter Grant would leave for the Velthari homeworld, carrying humanity's final offer of peace. And if that offer was rejected, everything would change. The countdown continued. 87 days remained. Ambassador Peter Grant had spent his entire life trying to understand other species. He had learned 17 alien languages. He had lived on 8 different worlds. He had negotiated peace treaties that saved millions of lives. Now he was walking into the throne room of the most violent empire the galaxy had ever seen. And he knew there was a good chance he would never walk out. The Velthari homeworld was called Krathos, a hot and dry planet covered in red deserts and ancient fortresses. The Velthari had built their civilization on war. Their history was written in the blood of conquered peoples. Their religion taught that strength was the only virtue that mattered. Peter had read all the briefings. He knew what kind of beings he was dealing with. But nothing could have prepared him for actually standing before the Velthari High Commander. Krathvar was enormous, nearly 10 feet tall, with scales the color of dried blood and eyes like molten gold. He sat on a throne made from the bones of his enemies, surrounded by warriors who watched Peter with naked hunger. So Krathvar rumbled, his voice like stones grinding together. The humans have sent a messenger. I expected you to send a fleet. This is disappointing. Peter kept his face calm. He had been insulted by experts. This was nothing new, High Commander, he said, bowing slightly. I come with an offer of peace. The United Earth government does not wish for war. Krathvar laughed, and the sound echoed off the stone walls like thunder. His warriors laughed with him. Peace, the High Commander said. You have no choice but peace, little human. You have no power to do anything else. Your species is weak. Your ships are primitive. Your worlds are defenseless. He leaned forward, his massive head looming over Peter like a nightmare. I gave you 90 days to surrender. That was generous of me. I could have simply taken what I wanted. Peter nodded slowly. Yes, you gave us 90 days. And we have used that time to reconsider our position. Something flickered in Krathvar's eyes. Interest, perhaps? Or amusement? Reconsider. You mean you are ready to surrender? No, Peter said. I mean, we are ready to show you something. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. The warriors around him tensed, hands moving to their weapons. But Peter held up his other hand in a gesture of peace. "This is just a recording," he said. "A message from my government. I think you should watch it." Crathver stared at him for a long moment, then gestured for him to continue. Peter placed the device on the floor, and a holographic display flickered to life. The recording showed empty space, a field of asteroids near the edge of human territory. In the distance, a single human ship drifted into view. It was small, smaller even than the frigates that the Velthari used for patrol duty. Then the ship fired. A beam of light, brighter than anything the Velthari had ever seen, shot across the void. It struck an asteroid the size of a small moon and erased it from existence. Not shattered, not broken apart. Simply gone, as if it had never been there at all. The recording continued. More tests. More demonstrations. Ships moving so fast, they seemed to teleport. Shields absorbing weapons fire that would have destroyed a Velthari battleship. Technologies had made everything the Velthari had look like children's toys. When the recording ended, the throne room was absolutely silent. Peter looked up at Crathver. The High Commander's golden eyes had narrowed, but his expression was impossible to read. "We have 600 ships equipped with this technology," Peter said quietly. "We have been building them in secret for more than a century. We have kept them hidden because we did not want to use them." He took a step closer to the throne, and the warriors around him tensed again, but he ignored them. "Humanity has spent 200 years trying to be peaceful. We accepted unfair treatment. We tolerated insults. We watched your empire bully and threaten us, and we did nothing because we believed in peace. We believed that patience was the right choice." Peter's voice grew harder. "But patience has limits, High Commander. And you have found ours." He pointed at the device on the floor. "This is Earth's final warning. Withdraw your ultimatum. Leave our colonies in peace. Agree to a fair treaty, and we will pretend this never happened. Your people will never know how close they came to destruction." Crathver stared at him, unblinking. "And if I refuse?" Peter shook his head slowly. "Then in 90 days, when your fleet arrives at our colonies, you will discover that everything you believe about humanity is wrong. And by the time you understand your mistake, it will be too late." For a long moment, no one moved. The warriors watched their High Commander, waiting for his response. Peter watched too, hoping against hope that he would see something in those golden eyes. Fear, doubt, reason. Instead, he saw only contempt. Crathver threw back his head and laughed again, louder than before. "Lies," he roared. "Fabrications. Desperate tricks from a desperate species." He rose from his throne, towering over Peter like a mountain of scales and muscle. "You think I am foolish enough to believe this? You think I have not seen 1,000 conquered peoples try the same pathetic bluffs? You have no secret weapons. You have no hidden fleet. You are nothing but prey pretending to be predators." Peter sighed. He had hoped for a different answer. He had prayed for it. "Then I suppose you will have to learn the hard way," he said. Crathver's eyes blazed with anger. "Take him to the cells. He will be executed publicly when we return victorious from human space. The galaxy will see what happens to those who waste my time with lies." Warriors grabbed Peter by the arms and began dragging him away. He did not resist. There was no point. But as he was pulled from the throne room, he called out one last time. "Remember this moment, High Commander. Remember that you were warned. Remember that you chose this." Crathver did not answer. He had already turned away, or already forgotten about the small human who had dared to threaten him that night. In a cold cell beneath the Velthari Palace, Peter Grant sat alone in the darkness. His mission had failed. War was coming, but he was not afraid. He had seen the recordings. He had visited the facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. He knew what was waiting for the Velthari when they arrived at human space. He almost felt sorry for them. On Earth, President Daniel Hayes received the news of Peter's capture with a heavy heart. He had known the man for 20 years. They had been friends once, before politics and duty had separated them. "Can we get him out?" he asked. "Secretary Santos, shook her head. Not without starting the war early. The Vel-3 homeworld is too well defended. Daniel closed his eyes. Another sacrifice. Another name that would be remembered when this was all over. Then we prepare for battle, he said. Activate the full fleet. Send Admiral Monroe her orders. He opened his eyes and looked at the star map on his wall. Somewhere out there, 3,000 Vel-3 warships were preparing to destroy everything humanity had built. They had no idea what they were flying into. How long until the fleet is ready? Daniel asked. 30 ships will be ready in 2 weeks. The rest will follow. By the time the Vel-3 arrive at New Providence, we will have over 600 vessels waiting for them. 600 against 3,000? In any normal battle, those odds would be suicide. But this would not be a normal battle. Send a message to all colony worlds, he said. Tell them to prepare. Tell them that help is coming. Tell them that Earth has not abandoned them. He paused. Thinking about little Sophie playing in her purple flowers, thinking about all the children who were counting on him to keep them safe. Tell them, he added, that the Vel-3 made a terrible mistake. The countdown continued. 60 days remained, and across human space, in secret shipyards and hidden facilities. The real fleet of Earth was finally taking flight. The Vel-3 fleet arrived at New Providence exactly 90 days after their ultimatum. 3,000 warships darkened the sky like a swarm of metal locusts. It was the largest invasion force the Empire had ever assembled, enough firepower to crack a planet in half. On the surface below, 4 million humans looked up at the approaching fleet with fear in their hearts. They had been told to stay calm. They had been told that help was coming. But looking at all those ships, it was hard to believe that anything could save them. Little Sophie held her mother's hand tightly as they watched from the window of their home. The purple flowers in the field outside seemed very far away now, like something from a dream. "Mommy," she whispered, "are the bad people going to hurt us?" Her mother knelt down and hugged her close. "No, sweetheart. The Navy is here. They will protect us." She hoped she was telling the truth. In orbit above New Providence, Admiral Linda Monroe stood on the bridge of the Endurance and watched the Vel-3 fleet approach. Around her, 30 human ships waited in formation. They looked tiny compared to the enemy armada. They looked like toys, but Linda knew what those toys could do. Admiral Commander Henry Cole reported, "The Vel-3 flagship is hailing us. Put it through." The holographic display flickered, and Krathver's massive face appeared before them. The High Commander was smiling, showing rows of sharp teeth like knives. "Admiral Monroe," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "I see you have brought a welcoming party." "How thoughtful." Linda kept her face calm. "High Commander, this is your final warning. Turn your fleet around and leave human space immediately." Krathver laughed. It was the same laugh he had used when Peter Grant had tried to warn him, the laugh of someone who believed he had already won. "Final warning. You have 30 ships against 3,000. You have no weapons that can harm us. You have no shields that can stop us. What could you possibly do?" Linda smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile. "I am going to give you 60 seconds to reconsider. After that, I cannot guarantee the safety of your ships or your crews." The High Commander's laughter grew louder. 60 seconds. "You amuse me, Admiral. Very well. I will give you 60 seconds to surrender. After that, I will burn your colonies and enslave your people." He cut the transmission, still laughing. Linda turned to Henry. "Start the countdown." On the tactical display, seconds began ticking away. The bridge was absolutely silent. Every officer watched their screens with focused attention, hands ready at their controls. 50 seconds. The Vel-3 fleet continued its approach, weapons charging, targeting systems locking on to the small human formation. 40 seconds. Linda thought about Peter Grant, still a prisoner on the Vel-3 homeworld. She thought about President Hayes, watching from Earth. She thought about Sophie and all the children on the planet. Below 30 seconds. She thought about all the years of patience, all the insults and threats that humanity had endured. She thought about the hidden fleet and the secret technology and the centuries of waiting for this moment. 20 seconds. The Velthari were so confident, so sure of their victory. They had never lost a battle. They had never faced an enemy they could not crush. 10 seconds, Linda took a deep breath. "All ships," she said, her voice steady and clear. "Weapons free." The human fleet opened fire. What happened next would be studied by military academies across the galaxy for centuries. They would watch the recordings again and again, trying to understand how 30 ships had destroyed an armada of 3,000. The human vessels moved first, faster than anything the Velthari had ever seen. One moment they were in formation, the next moment they were everywhere, appearing behind enemy ships, beside enemy ships, inside enemy formations before anyone could react. Then the weapons fired, beams of light that turned Velthari battleships into vapor, missiles that passed through shields as if they did not exist, energy pulses that disabled hundreds of vessels with a single shot. The Velthari tried to fight back. They fired their weapons at the human ships, but the shots simply vanished, redirected into other dimensions, leaving the human vessels untouched. They tried to run, but the human ships were too fast, cutting off escape routes, herding the enemy fleet like sheep. They tried to ram, but even that did not work. The human shields pushed the attacking ships aside like toys in 7 minutes. It was over. 2,800 Velthari warships were destroyed. Their debris would orbit New Providence for centuries, a monument to the Empire's arrogance. 200 ships managed to escape, fleeing back toward Velthari space with tales of horror and impossible technology. Crathro was not among the survivors. His flagship was one of the first to fall, vaporized in the opening seconds of the battle. Not a single human ship was seriously damaged. On the surface of New Providence, Sfufi watched the sky light up with distant explosions. She did not understand what was happening. She only knew that the bad people were going away. "Mommy," she said, pointing upward, "are those fireworks?" Her mother was crying, tears of relief streaming down her face. "Yes, sweetheart. Those are fireworks. The biggest fireworks ever."
Ow!
Governor Samuel Blake stood on the roof of the Capitol building watching the battle with disbelief. He had prepared evacuation plans. He had written goodbye letters to his family. He had expected to die today instead. He had witnessed the most one-sided victory in the history of warfare. His communicator buzzed. It was a message from Earth. "Governor Blake," the message read, "the threat has been neutralized. Please inform the citizens of New Providence that they are safe. The Navy will remain in orbit to ensure no further attacks. Signed, President Daniel Hayes." Samuel sat down heavily, his legs suddenly weak. Safe. They were safe. The nightmare was over, in orbit. Admiral Linda Monroe looked at the tactical display showing the scattered remains of the Velthari fleet. Her bridge crew was cheering, hugging each other, celebrating their impossible victory, but Linda did not celebrate. She thought about all the Velthari who had died today. Many of them had been soldiers following orders. Many of them had families waiting at home. "This was not what we wanted," she said quietly, so only Henry could hear. Henry nodded. "No, but it was what they forced us to do." "Send a message to the surviving ships," Linda ordered. "Tell them to carry a warning back to their people. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity does not want this war." She paused, her voice hardening. "Tell them also that we will finish it if we must. On Earth." President Hayes addressed the Galactic Council in a transmission that was broadcast to every inhabited world in known space. "For over 200 years," he said, "humanity has sought peace. We have accepted insults. We have tolerated discrimination. We have watched as powerful species threatened and bullied us, and we have responded with patience. We did this because we believed in diplomacy. We did this because we did not want to be conquerors." His image appeared on screens across 100 worlds. Species that had ignored humanity, species that had dismissed them. Species that had sided with the Velthari, all of them, were watching now. The Velthari Dominion attacked our colony of New Providence with 3,000 warships. They intended to destroy our people and enslave our survivors. Hayes paused, letting the silence stretch. "Their fleet was destroyed in 7 minutes. We suffered no losses. Across the galaxy, there was shock, disbelief, fear. "This is not a threat," Hayes continued. "This is simply a fact. Humanity has hidden our true capabilities for centuries because we hoped we would never need to use them. We wanted to earn our place in the galaxy through peace and cooperation, not through force." His expression hardened. "But let this day serve as a reminder to all who would threaten us. Earth's patience has limits, and those limits have now been reached. We do not seek war. We do not seek conquest. But we will defend our people with everything we have." He leaned forward slightly. "This is Earth's final warning to the galaxy. We will not give another." The transmission ended, and across known space. In throne rooms, in command centers, in council chambers, and military headquarters, leaders of 100 species looked at each other and realized that everything they had believed about humanity was wrong. Silent warning had been delivered, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had passed since the Battle of New Providence, and the galaxy was a very different place, the Velthari Dominion. The empire that had terrorized the stars for centuries was falling apart. Their military had been broken at New Providence. Their high commander was dead. And worst of all, the species they had conquered were finally fighting back. On a dozen worlds, enslaved peoples rose up against their Velthari masters. They had seen the recordings of the battle. They had watched 3,000 warships turn to dust in 7 minutes. They had learned that the Velthari were not invincible after all. The rebellion spread like fire through dry grass. Within weeks, half of the Dominion's territory was in open revolt. Within months, the empire that had seemed eternal was begging for peace. Ambassador Peter Grant, freed from his prison cell by Velthari officials desperate to end the war, negotiated the surrender. He sat across from the new Velthari leaders, beings who looked at him with a mixture of fear and respect that their predecessor had never shown. "The terms are simple," Peter said. "You will release all conquered species. You will pay reparations to the peoples you've harmed. You will reduce your military to defensive levels only. And you will never threaten another species again." The Velthari negotiator, a female named Selthakra, who had risen to power after Krathvar's death, nodded slowly. "If we agree," she asked, "will humanity destroy us?" Peter shook his head. "No, humanity does not seek your destruction. We never wanted any of this. All we ever wanted was peace." He leaned forward slightly. "Understand this clearly. If you ever threaten us again, if you ever attack another innocent species, we will finish what we started at New Providence. And this time we will not leave survivors to carry warnings." Selthakra looked at him for a long moment. Then she signed the treaty. The Velthari Dominion, the greatest military power the galaxy had ever known, was finished. On Earth, the celebrations lasted for weeks. People danced in the streets. They held parades and festivals. They named schools and hospitals after the heroes of New Providence. But President Daniel Hayes did not celebrate. He stood in his office, looking out at the night sky, thinking about everything that had happened and everything that was still to come. Secretary Santos entered quietly. "Sir, the Galactic Council has formally apologized for their failure to help us. They are offering humanity a permanent seat on the ruling council." Daniel nodded without turning around. "I expected as much. Fear makes people generous. There is more. Species that used to ignore us are now requesting alliances. Trade delegations are arriving from across the galaxy. Everyone wants to be friends with humanity now." Daniel finally turned to face her. His expression was tired. "Of course they do. We have proven that we are the most powerful species in known space." "Everyone wants to be on the winning side." Santos hesitated. "Is that not a good thing?" Daniel walked to his desk and sat down heavily. "I do not know," he admitted. "For 200 years, we tried to earn respect through kindness and patience. We failed. The galaxy ignored us. They dismissed us. They would have let the Velthari destroy us without lifting a finger to help." He looked at the star map on his wall. "Now they respect us. But they respect us because they are afraid. That is not the same thing." Santos sat down across from him. What would you have preferred? I would have preferred a galaxy that did not require us to reveal our strength. I would have preferred species that valued peace as much as we do. I would have preferred. He trailed off, shaking his head. But we do not get to choose the galaxy we live in. We can only choose how we respond to it. Far from Earth on the colony. World of New Providence, little Sophie was playing in her field of purple flowers again. 6 months had passed since the battle. The debris from the Velthary fleet still orbited overhead, visible as streaks of light in the night sky. But during the day, the world was peaceful again. Her father had explained what had happened. In simple words that a 7-year-old could understand, bad people had come to hurt them. Good people had stopped the bad people. They were safe. Sophie did not really understand all of it. She did not understand politics or warfare or galactic empires. She only knew that the flowers were still beautiful, the sun was still warm, and her parents were still there to love her. That was enough. Governor Samuel Blake watched her from the window of his office. He had aged 10 years in the past 6 months. The responsibility of rebuilding, helping his people recover from the trauma of near destruction, weighed heavily on his shoulders. But moments like this made it worthwhile. A child playing in a field, unafraid, unburdened by the horrors that had almost come. That was what they had fought for, and that was what they had protected. His assistant Derek entered with a tablet. Sir, the Navy has confirmed that the orbital defense platforms are fully operational. No ship will ever threaten New Providence again without warning. Samuel nodded. Good. What else? Admiral Monroe sends her regards. Send her my thanks. She saved us all. Derek smiled. I already did, sir. On the Endurance, Admiral Linda Monroe stood on her bridge and looked at the planet below. New Providence was beautiful from orbit, a world of green continents and blue oceans, dotted with the purple of those famous flowers. She had received hundreds of messages of gratitude from the colonists below. Parents thanking her for saving their children. Teachers thanking her for saving their students. Ordinary people thanking her for giving them a future. She kept every message. On the hardest days when the weight of command seemed too heavy to bear, she read them again. They reminded her why she did this. They reminded her what was at stake. Commander Henry Cole joined her at the viewport. The Council has confirmed our new status. Humanity is now officially recognized as a major power. We have veto authority over any military action in the galaxy. Linda nodded slowly. And how are the other species taking it? Nervously. You're being very polite, very cooperative. No one wants to upset us. That will fade, Linda said. Eventually, they will stop being afraid. Eventually, they will test us again. Henry shrugged. Then we will remind them why they should not. Linda turned to face him. That is not what I want, Henry. I do not want a galaxy that obeys us out of fear. I want a galaxy that works with us because they believe in the same things we do. She looked back at the planet below. But maybe that is a dream for the next generation. For now, we do what we must. We keep our people safe. We help those who need help. And we hope that someday the galaxy will be ready for real peace. Back on Earth, in the facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Grace Miller was overseeing a new project. The weapons platforms that had won the Battle of New Providence were being maintained and upgraded, but that was not her focus anymore. Instead, she was working on the other technologies from the ancient ship. Technologies for healing, not hurting. Technologies that could repair damaged ecosystems. Technologies that could extend lifespans and cure diseases that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. Kevin Brooks worked beside her, his eyes bright with excitement. This works, he said. We could help every species in the galaxy. We could end hunger. We could stop plagues. We could make life better for billions of beings. Grace smiled. That was always the hope, Kevin. Our ancestors did not just find weapons in that ship. They found the tools to build a better future. They just never had the chance to share them. She placed a hand on his shoulder. Now we do. Now that the galaxy knows we are strong, they will listen when we offer to help. They will accept our aid instead of dismissing it. They will work with us instead of against us. Kevin nodded slowly. So the war, It was not just about protecting ourselves. No, it was about earning the right to be heard. It was about proving that we are worthy of a seat at the table. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity has something to offer besides weapons. She turned back to her work, her fingers dancing over the controls. The weapons got their attention. But this is what will change everything. 1 year. After the Battle of New Providence, Admiral Linda Monroe addressed the newly formed United Earth Parliament. Representatives from all 12 human colony worlds had gathered to hear her speak. "We did not want this power," she began. "For generations, our ancestors hid what they had found because they hoped.
Yeah, we could earn our place in the galaxy without becoming the thing we feared.
They wanted humanity to be known for our art, our culture, our compassion, not for our weapons." She looked out at the assembled representatives, but the galaxy did not allow us that luxury. They mistook our restraint for weakness. They mistook our patience for cowardice. They pushed us until we had no choice but to show them who we really are. Her voice hardened. "Let the universe understand this clearly. Humanity is not a threat to anyone who comes in peace. We will share our technology with those who need it. We will defend those who cannot defend themselves. We will work for justice and equality among all species." She paused, and when she spoke again, her words carried the weight of 2 centuries of waiting. "But if anyone threatens our people, our colonies, or our way of life, they will discover what our patience was protecting them from. Earth does not make war lightly, but when we do, we finish it." The Parliament erupted in applause, and across the galaxy, on 100 worlds, beings of every species watched the broadcast and understood at last what humanity had become. Not conquerors, not destroyers. Simply people who wanted to live in peace and who had the strength to make sure that peace would last. The silent warning had been delivered, and the galaxy finally was listening.